Namaste. We are with Gautamji once again. Gautam, thank you for your time. It's really by Baba's grace we are here once again after, I think, a long 8 or 9 months.
Yes.
And it's really been quite unprecedented globally. Something I don't think anyone could have even thought of in their wildest dreams, that the whole world would be locked down. So it would be nice just to talk to you about the different aspects of how people and devotees may have been affected,
Yes.
about the fatigue, and just people have gone through so much.
In fact, I can't remember when we met last, but obviously it was before the pandemic situation. And, it's amazing in one sense. It shows us so little is in anyone's control. So even people who felt they were in control of their lives have now seen that if God wills something, He wills it. And there's a big lesson here. And that is why it says devotees who live with this understanding that even the next breath is not in their control, they are the ones who can face such challenges because they are rooted in the teachings of the Guru. So the pandemic is a real test of sincerity of a true devotee. And unprecedented. Nobody saw this coming. Nobody, including astrologers, you see. And collective suffering like we have never seen before, at least those of us who are alive here today, in the last 100 years, maybe a bit less than that, this kind of global collective suffering, physically and psychologically, unprecedented. And that is why I have a bias towards Sai Baba's teachings, because they become so relevant in these extreme situations. And let's not forget, Nick, the Satcharitra begins with the cholera epidemic. The first chapter itself begins with the epidemic prevalent in those times. So isn't this a significant pointer as to how relevant the Satcharitra is today?
Yeah, Gautam, you're absolutely right on that. Like, it's not a coincidence that that is the first chapter with which the Satcharit begins from.
Right.
And also, I found it highly symbolic that the grinding gesture Baba was doing, it's almost today as if we do not hang on to like the center, that is him.
Right.
One will just, this is almost like a whirlpool of catastrophes, one after the other coming.
Right.
That those who are not centered in him by means of remembrance or sadhana, are going to be pretty much, blown away, because I have seen people with difficult times, who've been impacted by the teaching. So on the external, they might have had something not very pleasant,
Right.
but they have still been centered and their faith is untouched. And as by virtue of which the experience of this is very different to someone who may not have had something bad happen, but then psychologically they may be scarred quite badly.
Yes, and that is why, once again, as I said, it is suffering and loss which bring people onto the path. This is a fact of life, because still everything is going smoothly. Why would you think of God? It is suffering and loss which bring people onto the path. Now, there's so much suffering today as a result of the current situation. Let's take one example, job losses. Okay. Let's take another. If we talk of psychological suffering, people have been in the same space with each other. Families have got stuck together. Whereas otherwise, let's say the man of the house was going to work every day, etc. So psychological challenges. You see, now two things tend to happen. One is one starts searching for the deeper meaning of life. What is the meaning of all this? That is the spiritual journey. If one is already on a spiritual journey, let's say one is already following Baba's teachings, the opportunity is now provided to delve deeper, you see. But there's one more scenario where there's just endless suffering because one wants to escape from what's happening and live in an imaginary future. For such people, the suffering continues. They don't turn onto the spiritual path based on everyone's destiny. But for those who are drawn to Baba's teaching, it is an opportunity to delve deeper and deeper into these teachings. And you mentioned faith. You see, this faith meditation, it has struck a chord because this is not a faith depending on an outcome. This faith is faith that whatever happens, whatever may happen, is His will. Now that is an unshakable faith.
Yes.
Because if faith depends on an outcome, that, oh, I am a devotee of Baba, so nothing will happen to me and I'll get what I want materially, etc., etc. Baba himself has said that prarabdha karma is prarabdha karma, right? But like you said, the wheel and holding on to the center, that center is Baba. So the faith that whatever I'm meant to face in life will be faced with the strength of my devotion to Baba. That is the faith. And you gave an example, if you can mention it, about a lady who experienced this faith.
Yes. She faced a very tragic loss of her husband unexpectedly due to he contracted COVID. And she wrote to me saying that the loss was unbearable. I mean, she said, but it was that faith meditation that held her together and gave her the strength to accept that loss, and it did not deter her faith.
That's the main thing.
And also that understanding, as you said, of prarabdha, that everything is ordained by him. And there are people who come up with an objection that how could Baba ordain this, or why the loss? But when I reflect on even what you say, and even in the Charitra, Baba has said this once, sorry to diverge a little bit. Once a devotee, Kaka Sahib Dikshit, asked Baba to save someone. And Baba said, see, if I save him in his next birth, it was going to hamper his spiritual life. Are you going to take that upon yourself?
See, that's the thing.
And that understanding and the faith meditation then makes you realize you don't know what is best, anything really.
Because we have a tunnel vision, you see.
Exactly.
We see things only from our point of view. This is good, this is bad. But this broader vision, spanning across lifetimes, you could say, you see, that is the vision Baba has. So, it's like when you're driving a car, either you look at the car which is just in front of you, or you're looking way ahead in case 10 cars ahead. That is the difference between Baba's vision and ours. And we tend to question Baba because our vision is so narrow. So the faith is that knowing that my intellect is limited, that there's a vaster presence, a vaster force, far more potent than mine, which is in charge of affairs. So this lady did not have the psychological suffering. Why did Baba do this to me? How dare he? See, people also complain like that.
Yes, yes.
I am a devotee of Baba. This should not have happened to me. Whereas all this for her, because she tapped into true faith, all this psychological suffering did not take place. It's a very important point.
So Gautam, I hope we can continue this series of small talks with you today. And I had a few questions to ask you. So I'm so grateful for your time.
Thank you.
And
Same here.
Yeah, it is really impacting many people, and
Yes.
I'm very grateful.